Good evening. This is Manjeet Kripalani from Gateway House, and welcome to the Gateway House Weekly Podcast. This is our 13th webcast, and we have today with us two very, very special people. One is Tilak Devasher, who is on our National Security Advisory Board, and he's also an expert on Pakistan, having written several books and authored many articles on it. We also have with us Christine Fair, who is a professor in Georgetown University and one of the most outspoken scholars on Pakistan and Pakistani policy. Christine is now focusing on Pakistan's engagement with the Khalistanis, the Pakistan terrorist groups with the Khalistanis, and how that could be the revival of a whole new dimension of the India-Pakistan bilateral. Christine will join us in a minute. There seems to be a little bit of a lag, but I'm going to start with Tilak. Welcome, Tilak. Welcome back to Gateway House.
Thank you very much.
You were with us 3 years ago when you wrote your book.
Yes.
And here you are again. You have plenty to discuss. So the episode is Pakistan between COVID and China.
Sorry.
God bless you. Under cover from China and COVID-19, Pakistan continues to avoid responsibility for its actions. The recent meeting of the Financial Action Task Force, which with China as chair, has kept Pakistan on the grey list, despite its not acting on terrorist financing, for which China cited COVID-19. However, its handling of COVID-19 has also been mismanaged. In April, Lieutenant General Asim Bajwa, chairman of CPEC, was also appointed as information head of the civilian government, entrenching the army deeper into Pakistan's civilian sphere. In June, India and Pakistan expelled each other's diplomats with reduced representation in their capitals. And on June 27th, Pakistan played the Sikh card, declaring the Kartarpur corridor would be open for Sikh pilgrims. All this while, India has been facing off China in the mountains of Ladakh. I'm going to start with you right away, Tilak. What role do you see Pakistan playing in the escalations on India's borders?
Thank you for having me, first of all. Nice to be back in Gateway House after 3 years. You know, I don't think Pakistan per se has a role in escalation. I think this is a China-centric and a China's own ambitions, aggressive ambitions, as you've seen in the South China Sea with Taiwan, vis-a-vis Taiwan, Japan, Vietnam. So this is part of China's own aggressive push. I think Pakistan will try or is trying to ride piggyback on what China has been doing in Ladakh, rather than being the sort of trigger for China's activities against us in Ladakh. So I think to that extent, Pakistan thinks that it could be a beneficiary rather than being the initiator.
I see. And how much do Pakistani generals have any influence over the Chinese PLA? There's a lot of talk that they are parked there, they stay there, they talk all the time about India. Is there any credence to this?
If at all, it will be Pakistan. The Pakistani generals will be very junior partners. I think China knows what it wants to do, and what the direction of the PLA is. And Pakistan at best could be filling up gaps in information that the Chinese may or may not have or would want to be amplified. So at best, Chinese generals would be sort of keeping a tier kind of a relationship, and the Chinese is like that. But on its own, I think the PLA would be sort of pretty much handling things on its own.
On its own. Let's talk a little bit about how Pakistan has managed or mismanaged the COVID crisis. It seems to have simply given up. Imran Khan seems to have no control over his health ministry or the health of his citizens.
Yeah, that's very true, because from the word go, if you remember, the messaging of Imran Khan has been appalling. He started off by saying that this is like a flu. It affects only the old people, and then summer will come, it will just die away. So the impression that the people got was that it's not a serious issue at all, it's just like a flu. Later on, he started blaming the people for not following the restrictions. And then by opening the lockdown, the people got the impression that, hey, the situation is over. So then everybody flocked to the road, the markets, like during Eid, during the, in the mosques and all. So the messaging has been extremely bad. And now when the situation is out of control, the ministers have started to blame the people for example, a minister in Punjab called the people of Lahore Jahil, illiterate and strange that they were not following the restrictions. So messaging has been very bad to begin with. Second, Imran Khan has been extremely stubborn and obstinate on how to deal with it. Sindh government went ahead and declared a lockdown straight away. And because that's a PPP government, Imran Khan adopted the tactic, no, I will not go in for a lockdown. And he did what's called a smart lockdown. As a result of which the thing, it's really spread. Now what the Pakistan government is doing, unfortunately, is that they have reduced drastically the testing, and so that positive numbers are coming down. In the middle of June, they have ramped up testing to about 25 to 30,000 a day. And the number of positive cases were about 6,500 to 6,800 per day. Suddenly, in the last 2 weeks of June, they have drastically reduced testing to below 20,000, and the number of positive cases are only 3,000. And they started patting themselves on the back. Look, we have broken the back of COVID because of smart lockdown. That isn't the case. The fact is that they have reduced testing, so the number of positive cases have come down, but the pressure on hospitals is that much more, and people are dying. An analysis was made in Karachi, for example. There are more deaths of bodies coming into hospitals and to graveyards, much more than in the preceding year last year. But because there is no postmortem, they're saying this is not COVID related, this is something else related. The fact of the matter is the situation has been very badly mishandled by Imran Khan's government. And now they say that the peak is going to come towards the end of July or August, and they're expecting something like 4 million or 40 lakh positive cases and close to 80,000 deaths. This is a study carried out by Geo. So it's been very badly handled.
Wow. That's a lot. And what are the international agencies doing? If WHO are watching over it, none of this news seems to be getting out.
No, WHO has given several recommendations, including ramping up testing to 50,000 and later on to 100,000. They've also asked for a 2-week lockdown, a 2-week off, 2-week lockdown to contain and to sort of flatten the curve. But Pakistan is not listening. The WHO is monitoring this very closely and has warned the Pakistan government that, look, what you're doing is incorrect. They specifically mentioned in the case of Punjab that Punjab is not ready for any kind of relaxation whatsoever. But because he's obstinate, Imran Khan, and because they don't want the number of cases to be shown, so they've reduced testing instead of increasing it as the WHO has recommended.
It's so foolish and it's so detrimental.
Absolutely.
And it seems that people are really simply at the mercy of mismanaged expectations and mismanaged policies.
Absolutely. See,
is there
to begin with, Pakistan's health services are pretty fragile because over decades, successive governments have not invested enough in the health infrastructure because there was no money. All the money went into paying off debts and loans and to service the army. So the expenditure on health has been very weak. Now you have got this pandemic where more and more people coming into hospitals requiring ICU, requiring ventilators. The hospitals are bursting at the seams. In Lahore, for example, it's a very major situation. Karachi, the doctors have warned that soon patients will be out in the streets because there will be no place in hospitals. So, the people, the poor people, sorry.
Go ahead.
The people are really going to suffer because of a lack of health facilities and the mismanagement of the pandemic crisis by the government. So they're following between two stools.
And is this going to lead to any kind of revolt from people, or are they just so fatigued from, continued poverty and continued, repression by the military, etc., or not? Is the Karachi blast, the Karachi Stock Exchange, is that an outcome of this kind of frustration?
No, I don't think so. You could relate the two. There are a lot of theories about the Karachi blast, though it was said initially that it was done by this BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army. People who have analyzed the entire operation, the way it was done, are now coming to the conclusion that it was actually a false flag operation done by the Imran Khan government itself to divert attention from a lot of problems that they face, and also to tell the Chinese that, look, because Chinese own a lot of the Pakistan Stock Exchange.
Yes.
So that this is attacking China's interests. So they're attacking both Pakistan and China, and that we will help you, and that kind of whole piggyback kind of a thing coming in. So I don't think so. This is anything to do with the pandemic as such. Where people will revolt is the doctors have already come out on the streets. The doctors, the medical professionals, they are saying that they were not given proper this PPEs, protective equipment. There were, there were a lot of deaths of medical workers and doctors. So they have been protesting. Students have been protesting in Peshawar and in Quetta, in Sindh, because they said they will have online classes. But there is no internet in these areas in Quetta, for example, or in Waziristan. So students there are, so there is a lot of resentment. Now petrol suddenly went up by 25 rupees a litre. So there is, in society, there is a lot of anger, but a revolt taking place. You see, in Pakistan, if you look at Pakistan history, the only time people have come out on the street was once against Ayub Khan and once against Zia during the movement for restoration of democracy. Other than that, they really haven't come out onto the roads as such. So I don't see that happening as yet, unless the situation further deteriorates and there is food problems of food distribution. Then I think the situation would be ripe for this kind of a move.
And what is the role of the mullahs in all this? They have kept remarkably silent. All these people that claim to love their fellow man, there has been no word from them.
You see, the mullahs have taken the position that nothing could happen to somebody who offers namaz 5 times a day. So they've asked people to come to the mosque and pray and have faith in God, and nothing will happen to them. So they are actually trying to benefit from this. You see, during Eid, a lot of the contributions for the mullahs for the rest of the year comes through the donations made by the people during Eid. So they were very keen. There's what's called the Tarawih prayers, which is the last, after the last namaz, the prayers, special prayers that are held. Or, so they are very keen that this should be done. So otherwise their earnings would get affected. So they are actually pushing the case that if you can do your namaz, if you come to the mosque, you will not get affected by COVID.
But Tilak, this is cynicism on all sides. Cynicism on the part of the mullahs, cynicism on the part of the civilian government, and cynicism on the part of the military. That leaves Pakistanis actually nowhere.
Yeah, actually, that's true. That's very true because, because it all stems from the top. Failure to recognize or understand or having misunderstood it initially, then you come out and say, look, this is a mistake. It's not a flu. It's much too serious for you to be going out around the markets and not being careful. The messaging has not got across to the people, especially in the rural areas. So that's why they are up in a pretty pathetic situation.
Is there, within the Pakistani military, have they actually taken care of their own people and said, all of you stay in your barracks and lock down? I mean, is the Pakistani military affected at all?
There have been no reports as such to suggest that the army or units of the army have been affected. I have not come across any in the open domain. But when the people go back home and they come back after leave, I'm sure a lot of them would have been. But this is just a speculation. I can't answer that with certainty based on any sort of evidence that has come before. But they certainly look after their people.
They do, yeah. So most countries are reducing their military budgets because of COVID. China, of course, is increasing theirs, but so is Pakistan. The Pakistani military is now more embedded in the country than ever before. They're embedded in its economy, embedded in its military and foreign affairs, of course, and more embedded in civilian life. How is that even possible?
That's just it. You see, because if you take the loan repayment and the military budget, this exceeds Pakistan's revenue. So everything else, including development, administrative fees, salaries, everything Pakistan has to borrow to pay. Now, the defense budget upfront went up by 12%. But there are a lot of hidden costs. For example, pensions are debited to the civilian budget. The nuclear program or the military, other developmental expenditure is all debited to the civil program. So the army is, even despite that, there's a 12% increase in the military budget. So now the development budget is less than 50% of the army budget. It's only 650 billion rupees. So you have very little investment going into water, into education, into health, into population welfare schemes, because there just is no money. And the tax collection, which they had projected to the IMF would be something like 5.5 trillion rupees, they have fallen short by 1.5 trillion rupees. So this revenue generation has cramped up on the one hand, and the expenditure, the loan repayment, as well as The defense budget has gone up. So there's very little left to spend on the uplift or the economic development of the country.
So before we open up to Q&A, which we're going to do shortly, I request everybody to just put your questions on the chat, and we will take it up with Tilak. Tilak, what does this mean really for Pakistan? It is, I mean, you can't even call it a basket case. It exists. It's a country. It's next to us. It's up to all kinds of tricks. It's in such bad shape, and yet it survives.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Sorry,
I said, and yet it survives. Yes, please.
Yeah. You know, the biggest thing going for Pakistan throughout since 1947 has been its geographical position. It has been able to leverage its geographical position first with the British, then with the US, and now with China. And I think will be the and because it's a nuclear power, it will be in the interest of all the major powers to ensure that it does not sink. So it will continue stumbling in this manner. And ultimate test is that so long as the Pakistan military and the army retains its chain of command and its integrity, you know, Pakistan will not sink. But the minute the Pakistan army starts getting unraveling, then Pakistan is in for serious trouble.
And what are the chances of that happening?
At the moment, very little, because where it can happen is that because the kind of radicalization which has been going on ever since Zia-ul-Haq's time has now taken deep roots. Now, for example, bulk of the recruitment today of the Pakistan army comes from South Punjab. And South Punjab is also the area from where the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed recruit. So it's quite possible that one brother is going into the army and one brother is going into the Jaish or the Lashkar.
Right.
What is not available in the public domain information is that how many of the Jawans of the Pakistan army have attended madrasas and then joined the army, and how many have gone through the government school system. You know, if you have an idea of the madrasa recruits, then you'll have a better idea of what is the kind of radicalization and Islamization in the Pakistan army. Now that is the danger to Pakistan, because so far, when the chain of command holds, it is upholding a constitutional system. But once the Islamized kind of recruits come in and take charge, then it will be a totally Sharia-oriented system that they would want to introduce. You know, so that's going to be allowed.
Right. And it will be a Sharia army and with a nuclear finger on the nuclear button.
Absolutely. But as I said, I don't have that information link yet. I'm working on it. Let's see what we can get it in the future.
Okay.